Hi, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Danielle.
Catch up on our full conversation where we discuss the key points of selling on social in 2022. I think the first thing you've got to do is always look at just what is currently running. So just going back to basics a lot of the time. I think a lot of accounts can get carried away with things like new features, but it is just making sure the best practices are in place from the get-go before you start increasing budgets and things. So
what you really need to be looking at is your business manager. So we'll use Facebook as an example. So is your Facebook business page and Instagram page linked? Have you got an ad account set up? Have you got a payment method set up? Have you got a Facebook pixel implemented? And not only is your Facebook pixel implemented, is it firing quickly? Have you got the relevant events set up as well? So that's things like view content, purchases, add to basket. And after the iOS update, the iOS 14 update, there's a new feature with Facebook which is called the Conversions API. And I won't pretend to be as tech savvy, however, it's another thing that needs to be implemented, and it just means it's an extra layer of
getting information to conversions.
It just means you're covered. It's not just tracking through the browser, it's through the servers as well. So making sure that's implemented as well. It's just all those little things need to be ticked off, and then once those are ticked off, you're more or less ready to go.
We do find a lot of the time we'll take like a deep dive into accounts that we're having a look at, and it is still astounding in like 2022 that so many just still aren't tracking what their classes, what they want to measure as success. So just making sure you're setting yourself up for success by being able to track what success looks like to your brand.
So that's literally one of the first things that we'll do. We've got a checklist and we'll go through it, and we'll work with you and your team just to make sure that everything is set up before we get started. So other things to look out for as well is just making sure that your product catalogue's set up. So if you're an e-commerce business and you're selling products through your website, you need to make sure that your product feed's synced. And just another thing as well, which I think is quite important, is just making sure that the relevant people have got access to the business manager, or even people outside of the team, so somebody higher up. Just if somebody leaves and they're the only person with access, like,
it's chaos.
It's
always chaos. Facebook don't make it easy.
Especially if somebody who has access is an agency. Like, we've just had that recently, haven't we? And they've really struggled to get full access, and it's just gone. So always make sure you get full access.
Tip number 1.
Yes, for sure.
I'm gonna hand this answer over to Danielle because it's all I hear from Danielle, just on her opinions on, and the huge thing is always around testing. Like, you will never know unless you test out the different formats and creatives available.
So looking at ad formats first, there's a variety of ad formats that you can be using. And every brand's different, so you might test a few different ones. So you've got things like carousel ads, collection ads, static imagery, video, biggie. Even creating slideshows. If you've just got static images, it's another format to test. And again, it's just using a variety of them within your campaigns and really finding out what works for your audience. For example, if you're an e-commerce like brand, you've got a lot of products to show, different collections, collection ads. You can really showcase a lot of products, and it's a good way as well to increase your average order value. And then creatives as well. Like, not all brands obviously have a bank of creatives, but if you do, brilliant. And those by creatives we mean lifestyle imagery, product images. If you're a retailer that stocks other brands as well, this is a good way to show those other collections. And it really is a good way to increase the average order value. We've seen massive success with collection ads, especially when retargeting our customers who are already familiar with the brand. Yeah, and another good one as well, which a lot of customers don't tend to take advantage of, is user-generated content.
Yeah, so like user-generated content is huge, and it's become such a huge thing since the pandemic, I think, where brands couldn't go out because of things like lockdowns, or you couldn't get the creative that they need to then be pushing their products online. So it was them realising more and more how valuable it becomes for organic, so using people's organic posts, repurposing those and using their creatives, obviously when you've got the permission of them, but to then repurpose for a social ad, and I think it works so well.
What's the point of an ad not being an ad? Don't realise that you're
scrolling and seeing an ad, like it looks so organic because it came organically anyway, it started out that way. And I think just we see so many stats coming through from our partners. So I know there was one a few weeks ago, I think it was 1 in 3 shoppers actually do end up purchasing if they've engaged with an ad that came from user generated content. So it's just showing, I think people buy from people, so seeing that organic
and like it might work, it might not work, and this is the beauty of it, like you have to test. So you've got user generated content, you've got your lifestyle imagery, maybe from professional shoots, video content, testing all of those different things within the different ad formats to see what really resonates with your audience, because what might work for one brand doesn't work for another, and what might work one month won't work for another month, so you have to be constantly testing.
Like you came to me
but always test, like even for me, like what I know what works for one brand, I can't stay and think like that, and
it'll always work for every single sort of brand in that industry.
Like you have to just constantly be thinking, I need to test if this works now, even if it didn't work 3 months ago, it might work now. So it's just always test. So another thing to mention, I think, about video content, not just the short form video, is just making sure it's accessible to everybody. So not only people who are deaf or hard of hearing, usually the majority of people, I reckon, have just sat scrolling either on a bus, train,
or at home, like on the sofa on a night.
Or in the office. People don't have the sound on probably most of the time. So if you can make sure that your ads cater for those people, it's the best thing possible, because you're not going to waste budget by showing it to people who just aren't going to engage.
Keep that message, So I think to work out if you target the right audiences, I think the first thing always to start with is just ironing out who you're wanting to be targeting. Is it just anyone, literally anyone, that will drive sales through to your website, or is it more an awareness piece, and just are you going after a new audience as well? Entering might be an older demographic, you might be is your current audience and moving into a younger demographic, for example. So I think once everyone's on the same page with who we should be targeting, then you can start to look at then, is it working? So one of the things that you would think about why it's not working is you're not getting sales, or you're not getting very many sales, you're not getting much traffic, or you're getting no traffic, or it might be that you are getting traffic but you're still not getting sales. So are you targeting the right audience, or is your content not working? It might be your content, it might not be the audience. But also, if we are driving traffic to the website but not getting any sales, it could be the website is not playing ball. So there's a number of factors that you have to think about as well. It's not always just about the audience. But again, like Sarah said, you need to be thinking, like, what is your objective? Like, are you wanting to drive new traffic? If you wanted to drive new traffic, creating audiences that are aligned with interests, aligned with, are they interested in like competitors, things like that. And one of the most important things I think as well is your Facebook pixel, is like making sure that's implemented correctly. So if you've got that implemented, you can start creating custom audiences. So you've got things like website traffic, people who've been on specific pages, so you can be really specific with your target and your messaging.
You can even target people who abandon the cart as well, but you know, they've not purchased. So it's really, really important. And of course, once you've got those custom audiences, you can create lookalikes as well. So Facebook will literally create audiences like similar to your customers. So that is a biggie. One of the things we always go on with our clients.
Yeah. And I think another thing to always think about as well is what you think is a best practice isn't always best practice. So again, like you always say, Danielle, you have to keep testing. So we came up against it with a brand recently where the original sort of best practice for social platforms is you'd have a prospecting audience, which maybe you do a lot of brand awareness for, and it is like telling the story so people start to understand your brand.
Yeah, like just introducing the brand, getting them familiar with the brand, so using like traffic campaigns or brand awareness.
Not a really salesy approach right at the start.
Yeah, like that's best practice, but
you've tested.
Yeah, like I've been testing it and it's just, it goes out the window sometimes, like not all the time, but you know, further down the funnel, like conversion campaigns, like where you're targeting people who've been on the website, people who are familiar with the brand. Like you can use those campaigns with new audiences, and it works. Not all the time, but it can work. So it's just like, do not think I have to stick to this process, because if you start thinking like that, that's when you're going to go wrong and your results are going to probably show it as well. Yeah.
And I think a lot of the time, just thinking about your price point as well, sometimes you do see social ads, and because it's quite a low value product, there's not a lot of thinking time needed on it.
Yeah.
You maybe don't need always a brand story, like people are not as loyal as they used to be online. So if you've got a really great product, it's a really great price, maybe you can go straight in with showing them the product without them knowing even who you are as a brand.
Yeah, like for me it would be clothes. If it's like, you know, affordable clothes, under £50, and it's something I really, really like, I'll probably just buy it. I mean, I do check, but ultimately you wouldn't, you know, whereas if you were going to spend £300 on like a cashmere jumper,
it's a considered purchase.
Yeah.
You'd need to know more about the brand.
Yeah, 100%.
And then I think the last thing as well is thinking about if you're even advertising on the right platform for your audience. So if you've got it nailed down who you want to be targeting, are they even on the platform that you are? A lot of people, obviously, some of them are on every single platform, but a lot of people choose to either be on just TikTok or just Instagram. So I think understanding who you're trying to target and then working out if a lot of your target audience are on that platform.
Yeah, I think the common thing that we see at the minute is like everyone's on Facebook. And then, and they do have younger audiences, and they're either scared of it or they don't realise they should be on like TikTok or Pinterest, and need to be taking these considerations seriously, because some of these platforms are like less competitive, so they're cheaper to run ads, cheaper CPAs, cheaper, you know, it's just ads overall are cheaper and it's more effective. So yeah, like one of the things for us, isn't it, Pinterest at the minute, try to get some of our clients to go on Pinterest.
Because it is such a good platform for, say, those considered purchases, for example. Like it's going to take a lot more for them to build up that trust to actually purchase with a brand they've never bought from before. But a lot of the audience on Pinterest, for example, are huge like planners. Like it's the planner platform, where they will plan. I think last year, like, or during the pandemic, they were planning from like April for the Christmas ahead, because they were just looking for things to look forward to and planning so early for purchases as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I think if your account's gone stagnant performance-wise, I think one of the first things to always look into is what's currently running. So are you putting things like enough budget into it? So is it ticking along as it always has? Will it ever improve, or is there a huge demand and we're noticing things are limited, or we could be investing more if it's hitting the targets it should be?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've noticed when I've like audited accounts is, you know, they're doing little bits of work and they're not doing necessarily bad. The results are there. They've got a low CPA. They're getting good purchases. You know, it looks good. you can just tell that they're just not increasing the budget, like to not
Capitalise on it.
yeah, and that could be a few different factors. You know, they don't really know what they're looking for, like what success are they measuring, like how do they know they're doing good? I can tell they're doing good, but that's a lot of the reason why people come to us, because they don't
realise they haven't got the measurement set up as well a lot of the time.
Yeah, so
to
like
track it.
so one of the things is obviously budget, you maybe not spending enough. Is your ad copy gone stale? Like, do you need to freshen it up? Do more testing? Yeah, so one of the things that you need to do is start adding more options in with your ad copy. So just start testing that. Your creative, is that gone stale? You know, like it might be boring people now. It might be out of season. You know, it might have worked 2 months ago. It's not working now. Yeah, it's like I think the main things that you would look at if you you know you're not getting the results that you want to be getting.
And I think moving ahead with like formats, so if you've only ever done static imagery, for example, on the social platforms, like mix it up, show them videos if you've got that creative ability to do that in-house, but just making sure you are making the most of newer formats coming out, seeing if that resonates better with your audience.
Yeah, again, like just testing all the time. You need to be testing, so use different ad formats, try new creative, try new ad copy. Just as an example, one of the clients for us, they've got unreal creative, like video, amazing lifestyle imagery, like everything's spot on. But one of the things that's performing amazing now is their dynamic ads. And when I say dynamic ads, I mean that Facebook are pulling through from the product feed, so it's just product owning imagery, and then showing it to the user based on their interests or what they've looked at on the website. And that's just smashing it, and it's almost frustrating because you've got all this amazing creative and then that's what's working. But that's why you should never presume, like
always test, and it might be the easiest thing that you've already got in place and it took actually no resource like in-house or by a creative agency to actually create all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of being stagnant, a good thing to look at is always a more top level. So is it just your paid social that's struggling, and then you know it is probably either a tracking issue or it's not set up for success or it needs a good refresh.
Yeah, it's just one of those simple things like your ad copy, your creative, your ad formats need testing. Oh yeah, it's the bigger picture.
Yeah, so if you're looking on things like GA on Google Analytics, just having a look, is it just that one channel? Because then you know it is something needs to change on that channel, or is it across the board on your marketing channels? Are you seeing less traffic across the board or less sales across the board? And then it could be potentially something like your website actually needs optimizing. The experience isn't great, maybe the site speed. So I think there's a lot of
it's quite easily to say ads aren't working, that's not working, and it needs to be looked at as a bigger picture
journey.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think for paid social results, if we had a penny for every time we had to, like brands do ask us a lot, just where I should be looking for my results, where to measure from, and I think we're both on the same page with you have to look at the different platforms. So looking at a top level across things like GA, Google Analytics, so looking for all marketing channels in one place, so at least there's consistent attribution across everything. But then also you have to take into account whoever is managing the paid social, you have to take note of the data that the platform itself is telling you as well.
Yeah, so another thing, you need to like know what you're kind of looking for, like what are your objectives, like do you want to look at the ROAS, like or do you want to look at the sales, the leads, like what is it you're looking at, and then you'll know where to look. So for example, we'll say Facebook again, so if you've got your events set up correctly with your Facebook pixel, you can look at the metrics within Facebook to see how many leads you've got, how many people have subscribed, how many purchases you've got and things like that. And then obviously you can see that information in Google as well, but because of the different attribution windows, you do have to kind of take it with a pinch of salt, look at Facebook and look at Google Analytics kind of separately, don't you really?
I think a blended view is always a good one.
Yeah, definitely, because Facebook is essentially saying I got all these sales, or I got all this, whereas Google Analytics looks at it slightly different, doesn't it? It looks at like last click, so it's just taken into account both. Yeah.
I think one of the big things, it's already here, but it's the short forms of video. So we've seen it loads since obviously the rise of TikTok. Instagram have brought out Reels, just really short form video that it's just does so much for brand messaging, I think.
Yeah, it's just the perfect way to engage with your audience really quickly. And one of the big things now is people are so focused on storytelling, so it's not just putting products in people's faces, you know, and can buy this. It's like story around it, and you know, just not directly selling. And one of the big things I think for 2022 that keeps popping up is how brands are using short form video to really like raise awareness about causes that they care about, or like what their values are. So again, another thing, especially within Pinterest, one of the things that they talked about was like value-based shopping. So people will buy from brands, you know, when their values align with theirs. So they'll buy from them. You know, for example, if it's a
Charitable cause, like
or if it's owned by a woman, or it's LGBTQ like friendly or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's like people really care about these things now. So when brands can show that, I think it's really, really valuable, and it will, you know, even if it just grows your followers or gets you more engagement at first, like those people will turn into customers.
And I think it keeps that loyalty as well.
Yeah.
Because it is such a value, and it is
Personable.
people buy from people.
Yeah.
100%.